We're on. Cool. Thank you, Sean. Hello, everyone. How's it going?
Hey.
Professor. So if we could start.
Your video.
Yeah, well, it's all going online. If we could all start by having each of you introduce yourself, maybe you can just say your name, your knowledge of the Enneagram. I know this is kind of confusing, but like on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being I literally know nothing, 10 being I know a lot, and then another number is your actual Enneagram, so your knowledge of the Enneagram, and then your Enneagram number, and then any thoughts you would like to share about the Enneagram, like you're excited to find out more, you've always had questions about something, wings. But we can go ahead and start with Julia Hayes.
Wow, cool. My name is Julia. Doctor. I would say on a scale of 0 to 10, I'm like a 3.5. I have a lot to learn.
Cool.
I think I'm a 1. Am I supposed to share what I am?
Yeah, you're a 1.
I think I'm a 1.
Yeah.
I identify with 1 and 3, but I'm a little bit more of a 1, I'd say.
Cool.
I have some friends that are like die-hard Enneagram people, so I feel like I have a lot left to learn about it.
Cool.
Not a lot of other people in like circles that I'm in talk about it, so
Yeah.
I'm like, is this really important? Should we talk about this more?
Right.
So I'm excited to learn more.
Cool. Thanks, Jay.
I'm Callie. My knowledge of the Enneagram, I would say 6. Like, I feel pretty good, but I know there's a lot to learn and then more podcasts to listen to. And my number is a 3, and I feel good about it, and I feel, honestly, very excited that we're going to focus on wings, because I have not focused that much on the Enneagram. That's why I'm only a 6 in my knowledge. So I don't know about the wings, I can't wait.
I also would relate to 6 being my scaling. I think that because of, my name is Emily. Yeah. Because of Fellowship and Rovia staff, they all talk about it all the time. So Sam was very much like, you have to take it, and like kept bugging me. And at first when I took it, I didn't agree with my number, and I took it again, and it made more sense. So I am, according to like self-selection as well as one of the testings, a 9 on Peacemaker. Just really fun when you realize all of the reasons why it's in the anger triad and all those things. But so I'd say 6, because I don't know anything about, or maybe 7. I don't know my wing though. I didn't ever in the test I took get a wing selected, so I'm excited to learn about wings.
Thanks, Sam.
My name is Chelsea, and I would say I have about 5, maybe 6 knowledge of Enneagram. I listen to a podcast, but I'm not like way hardcore. And I think I'm a 2. I don't know if I like being a 2 as a woman, but maybe I need to just accept it. And I think that's what I'm supposed to say.
I'm Kim, and I would say I'm about a 2 on the scale of 1 to 10. I don't know that much about this. I've maybe looked at the website twice. And from what I do know, I would resonate the most with 3. And I'm excited to learn more in general about everything, and also the wings for sure.
I'm Jen, and I think I'm on a scale of 1 to 10 and a 5. So I have some books that I've only read, like certain chapters that I'm interested in, and then read some or listened to some podcasts, but only a few episodes here and there. So I'm really excited to learn, and I really don't know a lot about the wings too, so this is one of the things.
Lots of 2s in the house. Cool.
I'm Kyle. I would give myself a 5 as well, just like being in a friend group. I think somebody said it too, like being in a friend group that's pretty like, they're all in, everybody likes to know their numbers, and everybody's pretty excited about it. But I don't, I have a book that I like got through the preface, and that is it. So I'm excited to keep reading it. Yeah. And I'm a 7.
Oh.
Wow. Okay.
That's
Oh.
Uh-oh.
No, I can see that.
It makes sense, right?
Totally.
I'm 7.
My name is Sam.
Hi, Sam.
I'm a 2. I'm a 2 in the type. Yeah, I'm the helper. One of many helpers. And I would rate myself 7-ish on
You should be
this.
teaching.
I should not. where I work, it is a fad and something that people talk about a lot. I think it's one of the most comprehensive like personality tests, and I think it's very brutal to like dive into your shadow side. So I think that's why I'm excited for this, and I just appreciate Professor Nicky. So,
Yes. Professor Nicky.
wherever you go, I go. So yeah.
Doctor.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Sean, and I am a number 1. And I would say my knowledge on this topic is about a 1. So I'm excited to learn more.
Cool. Thank you all so much. I appreciate you all sharing. And first of all, I just want to say, as I mentioned earlier, before we start, I would love to share what I am, Kyle. My name is Nicky Slavich. I am Enneagram Type 3. And my knowledge, honestly, and this is not like a self-deprecating, like probably like a 5 or 6. I don't claim to know more than people in this circle. I haven't read any books about it. It's something that I believe in and I'm passionate about and I'm interested in. So I'd say my knowledge is right in the middle. Specifically, I know a lot about wings because that's what we're talking about. So yeah, thanks for asking, Kyle. But thank you for being here. That's kind of the first note. As you all know, you are my friends and people that I care about so deeply. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for showing up and showing support in this very tangible and direct way. I appreciate each of you. You know this. And second, you may be wondering why you are here, which is a fair question. And I gave some context in the email and communication, but maybe not all. And since context is my number 1 strength, I thought I would share a little bit more about what we're actually doing in this circle right now. So I'm in my last leadership class at APU. Yes. And this is one of the very last assignments that I have to do, I get to do, I should say, before I complete the Master's in Leadership program. I'm so close to being done. In this class, thank you, is called, you'll see it on the screen, Leadership 571. The title is Leading for a Learning Environment. And the class focuses on, quote, the leader's role in designing and implementing effective learning strategies and effective methods for educating adults. Basically, it's a fancy way of saying you learn how to teach and how to learn together. And it's all about mutual learning, co-learning, all those learning buzzwords, which is so fun. So, part of the class is putting theory into action, which is the premise for this assignment together. I'm taking what I've learned in class and kind of relaying it to all of you in a big assignment for the course, which is a teaching presentation. This is like kind of my final type thing. So that's basically why we're here, which is great. Students have the opportunity to teach about pretty much anything they would like, and since we all love the Enneagram, as we know, even if our knowledge is a 1, even if our knowledge is a 7, I thought it'd be interesting to talk about something that we all enjoy. And this is the perfect opportunity to do so. This assignment had students, me, I am the student, create a 3-part lesson plan for the entire course packet. It includes 3-hour-long sessions for each lesson, but for the time being, we are just going to go over one of those 3 lessons, if that makes sense. So, the entire final is to do 3 lessons of an hour. We're going to talk about 1, and the focus is on Enneagram wings, which is great. So here's the deal. Where are we going? Basically, during our time, we're going to talk about some basic Enneagram knowledge and definitions as a refresher, and then we will do an Enneagram warm-up, like a physical warm-up, more of like a mental and learning activity warm-up, and then we'll focus a bit on wings. That's going to be the crux of our time together and how those interact with the Enneagram, followed by the main learning task together. I'll go over some helpful word sets for the type wing combination, and that's okay if you don't know that, that's why we're here. And then we'll do a final activity debrief together, and then close with some final thoughts, next steps, concluding points. If that sounds good to all of you, love it. So before beginning, I just want to note a few things that I will make direct references to. It's actually right here. Our friend Jane Vella on Teaching and Leaning. You know it, Callie? Fellow grad of the male program. Callie Frampton, class of 2016, an all-star student and a heart of gold. But really what we're going to be doing is, I'm going to reference this a lot, and the author is Jane Vella. And so if you hear me say Vella or Jane Vella's thoughts on this, whatever, on teaching and learning, then you'll know that I'm referring to the textbook, which may seem academic, but honestly it's going to be a really helpful foundation and undertone for our entire time together, if that sounds good. So, the first thing I want to talk about, and kudos to all of you for completing the LNRA, which is the Learning and Needs Resource Assessment. From that survey that you all did, and I was able to look at, I was able to better understand how to put this course together, and I know it was anonymous, but learn a little bit more about each of you and your knowledge on the Enneagram, which is why we're not doing an introductory course of what is the Enneagram, though there are some people differing on the scale. It's more of an understood, assumption of what it is, and then we'll go into detail on the wings. So part of this teaching, or part of the course, has 3 lessons, and it's broken up into centers. So those are on the Enneagram. This will probably be helpful to pass out now. You can reference this at any point in which I'm talking, and then there'll be more handouts to come. But you'll see on there are centers, so the 9 numbers are broken up into 3 sections. And then next to each number, that is your wing. So for example, a 5. If you are a 5, you could have a wing 4 or 6. And then talking about integration and disintegration, those are the arrows. It kind of looks like a cult symbol, I know, on the paper, but basically that shows you where you go in times of health and where you go in times of unhealth. And so for our time together, the reason why wings on the screen is highlighted is because that's what we're going to focus our time on. Another important note on the LNRA is the way people prefer to learn. So out of the options listed on that Google form, the most common box checked for preferred learning included small group dialogue and large group discussion, which is good news because, as I said before the recording started, this is genuinely not a lecture for me for the next 60 minutes. A lot of learning will come through discussion and dialogue together. I will be doing minimal talking, and the majority of time will be in those groups. So we'll touch base on other learning styles mentioned, those bottom 3 of lecture, media, and hands-on learning. Those are how people in this group learned second best to small group and large group discussion, but we will incorporate those as well. So let's go over the basics of the Enneagram together, if that sounds good. A brief history, and I won't spend too much time on here. I would want to because I was a history major. Hopefully, well, not hopefully, you may or may not know that. And that's great. Many people believe the history of the Enneagram has ancient roots and thinks that the instrument is hundreds of years old. And there's some validity to that because Enneagram ideas and the thought of personality can be traced back to the 4th century to a gentleman by the name of, wait for it, Evagrius Ponticus, yes, sounds like a Harry Potter spell for our Harry Potter friends, who wrote about themes in the 4th century of self-love and deadly thoughts and his personality and other 8 remedies. So you can kind of see how his personality 8 remedies seems very similar to the 9 Enneagram type personality instrument we use today. But it actually, the instrument is credited to Oscar on the screen, yes, Icazo? Emily, you speak Spanish. How would you say it?
Oh, you think it's in Spanish?
Yeah.
Icazo? Probably
Sure.
that makes sense. It's Italian.
Oh, sure. There you go. Emily is cultured and knows many languages. So from there, it was taught and spread and eventually came to the United States in the 1970s, which you can see on the screen. And then it was written more about in the 80s and 90s by authors like Richard Rohr, if that sounds familiar. And now it's hip and trendy, and there's conferences, there's songs, there's seminars. It's like a cult-like following all about the Enneagram, and hopefully with some really emotionally in tune people. So you are hopefully relatively fluent in the Enneagram types, but the tool, here's what it's for: personal and collective transformation. So in the Greek, not to get all wordy on you, but Enneagram literally means Ennea, 9, and Gramos, written symbol, the 9 symbols, and this graphic represents a picture of how we relate to ourselves, others, and the world. Each specific Enneagram type has different patterns of thinking and feeling and acting that arises from that internal worldview, or more specifically, motivation. That's like a buzzword in Enneagram talking is motivation, which we will chat through. So you can see it's a circle, which they, whoever they are, say represents unity, right? A circle, kind of whole, completeness, and then the triangle connects the 3, the 6, and the 9. It's kind of a like eye puzzle, but you can see the triangle in the middle there, and those are connected by the 3 different centers. So on your handout, like Julia's, you see kind of this big looking Y, and that represents 3 different sections for the heart, which is the 2, 3, 4, the head, which is the 5, 6, 7, and the gut, which is the 8, 9, 1. That's a different lesson for a different time. We won't spend too much time on that, but each of the 9 are grouped into 3 clumps. And then we will go over and highlight the 9 different numbers. You can see it on the screen. I'm just going to read them all for you, and yours will probably jump out. Number 1 is the reformer. Number 2 is the helper. 3, there's at least 2, 3 threes. The achiever, the individualist for 4. I don't think we have any 4s or 5s. Investigator. The loyalist is the 6. The enthusiast, excited to have Kyle share more about that possibly. The challenger, which is 8. And then of course, the 9, which is the peacemaker. So, we are going to begin with a warm-up activity, and this is just to get us start thinking and engaging with the Enneagram. Likely things you may already know, but for people who have no context for the Enneagram, I will give you a handout, and this will be helpful. Here's what we're going to do. Team, we're going to split into 2 groups. A group, it's supposed to be 2 groups of 5, it's fine. 2 groups, 1 of 5, 1 of 4, and each group is going to have a sheet and a scribe, so maybe someone who can take notes, and then you can assign that role to the person who writes. That's an important part of Fella. I told you she'd come up a handful of times. She says it's very important to clarify roles, so make sure you know who your scribe is before moving forward. Each group will think, probably Jenny Lee, who everything she touches with writing and calligraphy turns into magic, which is amazing. So you think of 3 people, which would be amazing per, and I'll put the graphic back up, now you have your handout, per type. So, for example, I will give you a description of all the different types, and for type number 1, you will think of 3 people, and these can be historical, fictional, celebrities, cartoons, family members, but just start thinking of people who fit into that category. Some of you may already know there's like an Enneagram app for this. Some of you may have looked at your type online and said, oh, I'm a 7. Who else is a 7? Oh, that celebrity makes sense. Don't say, yes. Good point. And this is really just to have you start thinking about the Enneagram. A quick note before we split up is we want to create a safe environment together. So just to know, let everyone know that you can share whatever you like. This is a safe place. This is a staple for Jane Vella in her learning tasks, but I honestly think it's really important because the deeper we go into this, we might share more personal things, so know that this is a safe and open space for everyone. So we will split into groups. Are there any questions? Does that kind of make sense? So for each type, for example, number 2, you might put like Jesus, Mother Teresa. Don't put those because I already gave them 2, but things like that. Sorry. So brainstorm together, and then for the video, I will go around and show the groups interacting. Don't you worry, 571 fellow learners. So here's the sheet, which we will have. If you could take one and pass it around. As Julia's doing that, helpful, they say the best way to identify your Enneagram is just to read a little bit more. So all of you thankfully know your Enneagram, but if you're feeling like you might lean towards one or the other, these have a description of all of them. You don't have to like read every single line. You can kind of, as your group goes to, okay, let's start with number 1. You can kind of read number 1 and say, oh, this person, this person, this person. Number 2, okay, great, this person, this person, this person, and so on and so forth. We'll give you about 4 minutes to do this, and then we will come debrief in a large group together, if that sounds good. It may be helpful if so voices don't overlap. How do we want to split up? Let's just do this. I'll label everyone 1, 2, 1, 2, so that way you're with random people. Sean, starting with you, you're a 1, Sam's a 2, you're a 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Maybe we do 1s can stay right here, and then 2s, chairs are movable, and you can go over yonder.
Whoa. Let's make a little circle right here.
Okay.
There's actually like 3 2s, 3 2s.
I'll just sit right
Is this
there.
one?
Yeah.
Either second way over here.
Okay.
Whoever the scribe is,
Jenny?
Who wants to be scribed?
We have a scribe.
Oh, right, so
I think that's part of my day.
On the app, it says, on the app, it's like Mother Teresa,
Alright.
Jesus Christ.
Okay,
Yes.
so
Yeah, you guys are all
Wait, I think I'm a 1.
Yeah.
We're already on 3 for 2.
I know you said you're
What did we do? We can just put it ourselves.
7.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
We have 1, 3.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Also,
I know.
no pressure. Like,
Yay,
I feel like
okay.
there's a lot of pressure to be like, oh, the 1.
Do we feel like we need to read the full description, or do we feel like we know them well enough to
It'd
be
be
like?
challenging, I think.
Some of them I don't know that well.
I know.
Come on.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah, and have your sheet.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah, you can
Okay,
help us.
start with number
Okay,
1.
I randomly know that
Perfectionist.
Albert Tate is an 8.
Sean.
We got this fun.
Well, he really is a 1. He said he's a 1. Are we supposed to put people like, is it like famous people?
Or people, yeah.
so, yeah.
Can you speak on this room?
No, it can be literally anyone. Famous, fictional, so like Spider-Man, Superman. It can be my mom. It can be anyone.
Got it.
When we come back together, we will go over a few of the answers, not all 27 for each together, but just be ready to maybe explain why you chose that person. So it can be anyone, but maybe have a rationale.
Great.
Okay,
like
who's someone
hiding
that's like a,
people.
did you put Sean?
What do we think?
Juliet.
She's a 10.
Oh,
Nice.
So the 8 is enthusiastic, generous, and powerful.
Three, but more so with one.
Okay.
They're also excessive, angry, and dominant.
And then,
Let's read some other things.
Yeah.
Integrity, self-control, correcting what is wrong, doing the right
8's tend to
thing.
take charge of situations and
What?
step in a leadership role.
They're like social justice people.
Yeah.
So if
Like-
it's gonna start?
Well,
Like
this is
somebody
like
says,
the
really
the
helpful, but also like
people who
People that who want like results. Just like I feel like
Some sort of
Marlon is
a
like
executive.
Yeah.
someone who's like
Activists,
I need
yeah.
like results.
Uh-huh.
impatient with rules and
I'm
regulations.
thinking
but that's
okay. He was probably
Non-adaptable though.
But they're
Oh,
serious.
okay.
Someone that's
It's
like
like a
love
fitted
that.
protector. As soon
I
as
feel like I'm
the
thinking
first
this
time
is
we move it out of the way.
the girl on Double Life product.
So do we have to
Oh,
pick 2 or 3?
Good running.
Meryl Streep.
Meryl Streep.
But in that
Three
role.
examples. Okay.
2 feet this
What
way.
else?
This is the street this
Thank
way.
you. You can.
Do we think that Miranda be a name?
Thanks, man.
Haley,
She's
Miranda.
not
I
dominant.
don't know. I was thinking of like
Can we use it?
a hard.
Yeah.
No, it's okay. We got this.
No,
Less
Miranda.
fortunate, we're gonna give them a class.
Sure.
Any talk show.
Miranda.
Have you seen that? Sorry.
All right, we'll say 3 more minutes.
Are you serious?
And the most important part is getting at least 1 for each number.
Oh,
instead
one
of-
for each.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you have time to do 3, that'd be great.
Me and Jesus Christ.
Yeah. I feel good about that list.
Every
Three.
has a revengeful attitude.
I was kind of kidding.
I'm just doing it.
No, you
Okay.
3.
Okay, so type 9.
Kelly.
At least 1.
And,
Mediator.
I don't
Do we
know.
think that
Someone's like a hard
Sure.
entrepreneur.
Well, let's
Yeah,
family
no,
likes
I
it.
don't
Yes.
know. Anybody else seems like he'd probably be.
I want him to be.
Compared to all these other people that you know. I know moderators.
Basically, another thing about INTP, we avoid conflict. So we don't like to be.
Is he a
No, he's a one.
I know, but he
Maybe Nelson Mandela and Gun.
Yeah.
Okay. Or maybe like a fitness person.
Okay.
I
True.
don't know, you know,
Yeah,
like,
type
they're
1.
always on the go and trying to be
Yeah.
fitter and hotter and all that jazz. So like
Autumn, I
Autumn.
describe.
Autumn's like our
Autumn, just put Autumn.
Okay. She's
Okay.
our
Yes.
PD trainer.
She did.
Yes.
Oh, she did for 3. Oh, for 3. Yeah, she did.
Okay, let's move to 4.
Words are very hard.
Okay.
Fashion idealistic.
They're like
Fire, emotion, serenity.
artistic,
Mark Chase is a 4.
compassionate, idealist. I think of Ariel.
Yeah.
I don't know if
Maybe.
she is, but she's like
Yeah.
They may resent people who don't take life as seriously as they do. So who's like a fictional character that's like,
Yeah.
come on,
She probably is a 4.
Yeah,
No.
Ariel.
Wow.
Perfect.
sorry.
Weird.
Touchy
Wow.
sensitive.
Well done.
I don't think who is
Scholarly, perceptive, self-reliant, isolated, overly intellectual.
You were incredibly right all the time.
Probably.
That is sometimes I
That's
think
spot on.
Yeah.
Intellectual, yeah.
Who tends to,
Isolated.
like, whenever they're talking,
Yeah,
Yeah.
people that are like introverts.
evolve
Overly
into a sermon or a presentation
Yeah.
style.
Well, big on small
'Cause that's
talk.
such
Not
a
big on
sweet
small
spot
talk.
precisely
Yeah,
someone
yeah.
with a tendency to
But
sermonize.
Good old
awesome
Bonnie.
perfectionist.
Yeah. What a great person. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
type
six.
6, the loyal skeptic. Sure.
Yeah, he's honest, responsible, and
Yeah.
paranoid.
Loyal, courageous, attentive to people, and
Moving on.
often strategic thinkers.
Oh, the givers.
Easier.
Yeah, I would say insert any talk show.
It's so hard to.
Ellen.
Good at anticipating problems and coming up with solutions.
This is hard.
I
I
know
feel like
six.
this would be a
Okay.
super.
I know like personal people, but no one that like
It's like at the bottom.
You can say personal people.
We have been, yeah.
Oh, great.
Overworked.
select
Um,
Successful.
Brandon's a 6. I need one.
Oh, okay.
Or you can just
Okay.
Hard to
What's her
type.
name? Make sure.
Oh, Reese Witherspoon.
That's what. Leah Michelle. That's me.
So maybe 2 more minutes.
Let's skip it.
We'll extend the time a little bit.
So-
Great job, everyone. Excellent dialogue.
And like Jet Black.
Romantic.
Yes. Yes. For sure.
Jed.
Jet Black.
Isn't, I think which one is he?
Maybe
I'm
like
trying to
all,
think of
personal people.
the blogs of, or not blogs, the podcasts I listen to. I think Michael Bender is in that.
Yes.
Just people just gonna focus on
Artists who
people.
sell like wrestling
People weird.
It's my extent of the Enneagram.
Okay, I think we know some stuff.
This is the ones that I think feel,
Protector.
they feel unique. I feel like people don't
Oh, these are
understand.
like, these are like, powerful.
Oh, I can see
yeah.
that being
So like
Strong.
Oprah's gotta be one.
Oprah.
Enthusiastic, generous, powerful.
Yeah.
Past character.
I feel like Oprah's
I might be
Even
MLK.
like a, yeah, like a singer.
I was gonna say anyone that's
We're
a
gonna go
creative,
for it.
like a singer-songwriter, an artist.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Right.
John,
Right.
mediator.
My
Emily.
sister.
Great,
Emily.
Sally's sister.
because of the musician part of it.
Stubborn,
Wow.
stubborn, ambivalent, seems like conflict avoidant, balanced,
Yeah.
accepting,
Moody, withdrawn, and
Cool.
cooperatives, they're problems.
Is he really?
Okay, type 5.
That's a talk up here.
Okay, is there anything that we don't
I don't know
have
how
any?
you guys.
Yeah.
5 and a 6.
Read-
Let's go back to that.
Oh, goodness.
Those are the ones I know, like, scholars.
Let's try doing some vodka.
Oh, did you hear what I said? Okay, okay. I was like, wow.
I think that it's a great,
I
like,
think it's very
Albert
true.
Einstein.
All right, let's say another minute. Maybe wrap up.
Actually,
Yeah,
actually,
maybe
most
six.
isolated.
Okay,
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
we're going back.
Good job.
Somebody that's like a researcher.
Yeah.
Just
All
people,
right, loyal skeptic, 6.
they like hate authority, right? 6
Yes.
minutes.
So yeah.
Already needs safety of the group.
Yeah.
Like,
This is gonna go well. No, it's not like, it's not
That's
even like a
super
thing,
true.
it's
Don't
like
even
a
roll.
it's like we found out we're like, oh my god.
Okay, type 7 is the extrovert. What is that?
That's
Who's
me.
loyal?
Yeah, like easiest.
The like courageous, attentive to people, like I'm like a
yeah, like a good mom, but like a bit of a
I'm gonna write
overly
Helicopter.
cautious
George.
mom.
like a strong.
Who we love,
Fairly confident
but
George.
they
Yeah.
sometimes
Um,
get a
Like
little
yeah, having
hater,
serious questions and
having
playing
some
devil's
service.
advocate. I feel like that's like a helicopter. Why are you going?
I'm
We're
good.
good. Jump on
Is
the
it
ball.
anywhere?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
It's helicopter mom counts, we do.
Yeah, yeah.
Good job, guys.
Generalizing.
Yeah, we have one for you.
That was
That's the
very
thing, that's some of our people.
impressive.
You
Oh,
know,
that's great. That's great. Okay, let's come back together, fam. Thank you so much.
good job, team.
Should we do a section? Yes. Do you want me to do it? Is it just
I got it.
Okay. I may break it.
Go back to our original seats.
That would be amazing. Thank you.
Okay.
Here's your chart. I mean,
You got a 5x4.
No, please.
You toss me one?
Stand up really good.
Thank you, Sean. We are live for part 2 of 3. We're breaking this lesson up. 1, because it'll make the flow better, and 2, because 60 minutes is a lot to upload at one time. Am I right?
Yeah.
So I get a clap and some.
You're right.
Cool.
you too.
Thank you all so much for participating in that activity. We'll go over everything in detail, but I want to take a few highlights from each group. But a quick note, in the concept, you'll see it on the bottom of the screen, is respect. We talked about safety, and something important to talk about here that I don't think is a problem for this group is respect in each other's ideas and each other's thoughts. There may be people who say, there's no way that celebrity is an 8, they're totally a 2, or whatever it is. So we all mutually respect and in our safe environment value each other's ideas. So we're gonna make this pretty quick. Hopefully you had enough time to think of one for each one. I won't beat a dead horse and ask you why on every single one, but maybe we'll alternate starting with the group who had a few more. So group 1, who did you put for type number 1?
Type number 1.
Oh yeah, you're split up now. I'm so sorry.
That's
Emily.
okay. We put Obama
Love it.
Wow.
because we feel like he could be considered a perfectionist. It was mainly the speaking, right? That we felt good about. Speaking style, precise, detail
Cool.
oriented,
That's really good.
responsible, improvement oriented.
Love it.
Good president.
Yeah, well done. And that was, thank you, 1, for saying that, and 2, for the way you explained it. That was the perfect synopsis. Maybe just give like a few words about why, like a sentence if that. Yes, a very quick tweet. So group 2, number 2.
Oh, group 2, number 2. We put Chelsea.
Chelsea!
Yeah,
Do you thoughts why?
She is loving and helping and always looking out for other people.
Yeah, she is.
And strong with it. She's not a
Yes.
pushover.
Not a pushover.
Yep.
Not a classic
Well done.
Christian woman.
Group 2, number 3. Good call.
Group 1, number 3.
Group 1, number 3. Yeah, good call.
All right. Two that Kim found when she did her research, because she also is a 3. were Reese Witherspoon and Leah Michele, 2
Love it.
actresses.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that was based on research.
Yeah.
Not much more than research, but based on research.
Research
That's
is
what I read
great.
online.
I love it.
Yeah.
I can see it.
I can see it.
Group 2, number 4.
We put Ariel.
Oh yes,
Okay.
a common
Yeah.
friend of ours.
Yes. Super, well, she does seem like the romantic type, also super artistic.
Yes.
And which one's lots of emotions. And
Perfect.
she's good at sharing.
Completely, I agree. Thank you. Group 1, number 5.
We put a friend of ours, Sam Vaudry.
Is
Oh,
it's like the poster boy for
Very
Brian.
intelligent.
Scholarly, perceptive,
Yeah.
top of the line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A smart one, Sam is. Yeah, well done. Group 2, number 6.
Helicopter mom that we love.
Mm.
We don't
Healthy
have an
helicopter.
exact thing, but
Because helicopters' moms are like loyal, but they're also like, why are you
A
going to
little-
the party? What are you doing?
It's good.
They're like questioning but loyal.
Yeah, love it.
Nice.
My mom?
That's who we
All
wrote.
right. That's amazing.
We literally wrote
Number
here.
7.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Recent cut. Okay, a friend and a not friend. Taylor Bridges and George Clooney.
Yeah. Dynamic duo.
Yeah, George Clooney. Kyle felt like it just jived, and Kyle's also 7.
When I took my test, that was one of the main
Oh.
examples.
Mhm.
Taylor.
Yeah, makes sense.
But with Taylor, we're like adventurous, fun-loving.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you, thank you. All right, finishing up on 8 and 9. A couple words on each. Whoever did number 8 this group.
Yeah, Jenny.
Albert Tate.
Yeah,
His name, like-
local pastor.
Yes. He is, I'm so sorry. He is, let's see what some of these things he could be. He is, I think he is a challenger. He gets energy from
Yeah,
challenging people and people challenging him.
sure.
And
That's a good example.
he's a very strong leader.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Cool.
Mhm.
Good point.
Yeah.
Excellent example. Number 9, bring us home.
One of ours was Gandhi.
Amazing.
Yeah, because
So
he felt
good.
balanced and accepting and all of those things.
Cool. Well done. Thank you all for participating in that. That was perfect. That was honestly exceeded my expectations, which I feel like were high. So well done. Moving forward together, let's talk about a few reasons why we do that. The reason why I put Let's Fly, because of Enneagram wings. Wow, what a great response from the audience. Students, not audience, not a performance. Students, you'll learn about performance when I show about being a 3. So we did it for a few reasons. Why? 1 is to start getting you thinking about the Enneagram numbers and different personality types. Number 2, just to have you get up and move into a new position while verbalizing your thoughts and listening to others. The third part is this idea of integrated thinking, that you're just not thinking about one personality type, but that you are thinking about multiple. And as a small note, I think every time I mention Jane Bella, I put a small note. So a small note for our time together is we are doing a concept called sequence and reinforcement. And this is a core idea that says we're going to go from small ideas to large, we're going to go from shallow ideas to deep, and then we're going to go from simple to complex. So this is just kind of a warm-up, and then it'll maybe get more complex, hopefully, as our time continues. Part of understanding these wings together, a few sentences that I pulled from the Enneagram website I will read below, and here's what they say, the Enneagram Institute officially, if we're wondering about a definition textbook. Each person has a dominant personality type. One of the 2 types adjacent to your basic type is called your wing. Your basic type dominates your overall personality, while the wing complements it and adds important but sometimes contradictory elements to your total personality. Your wing is the second side of your personality, and it must be taken into consideration to better understand yourself or someone else. Love it. Before we move forward and kind of dig into me sharing a little bit and then the main activity together, let's watch a quick video from our friend. No idea who this woman is, but she does a helpful job in explaining wings for about 90 seconds.
Our dear friend.
So as we continue to look at this amazing diagram of the Enneagram, we can look at some other aspects of it too. We're going to talk about wings and arrows. So wings are referencing the points that sit on either side of a type. So if we were to just look at our type 7, on one side of the type 7 we have a 6, and so a 6 wing can influence a 7. On the other side of the type 7 we have an 8. That means an 8 wing can influence a type 7. So the wings for a type 7 are a 7 with an A wing or a 7 with a 6 wing. And one generally is a stronger or easier wing to access. But the notion of growing yourself is really all about the ability to access both wings. When you start thinking about wings, just the term wings, and the aerodynamicness of a bird or a plane, they fly smoothly when they're using both wings. So if you can think of a metaphor of from your own type, once you identify your type, and it is your opportunity to develop both of your wings, you're going to have an easier flight in life when you can access the aspects of both wings. Also,
Thank you, friend. Appreciate you. So, oh Lord, let's see. Okay.
so
Cool. So, a few more things on wings specifically. And I like what she had to say, and here's why. I think, let's just use a 2. So Chelsea, for example, and half the people in here are 2s, so hopefully this is helpful for a lot of you. A 2 is a classic helper, giver. You probably saw that in your handout, and your wings are a 1 and a 3. And there's debate, she kind of alluded to it, but there's debate about whether people have 1 wing or 2 wings. I personally believe, or lean towards people having a dominant wing and leaning towards that, though there's validity and thought about needing both wings, and that's helpful for the bird metaphor, right? It's hard to fly with just one wing. But usually how it happens is that there's a dominant wing, which we will self-identify in just a few moments. But regardless, being a 2 means that you touch 2 other personality types just by being a 2. So no matter which one you lean towards, Chelsea is a 2-wing 1 or a 2-wing 3, you're accessing at least both in some areas. But not only that, and on your diagram, the first one that was handed out, you'll see the arrows. You go to, speaking of a 2, you go to a 4 in areas of growth and integration, words like self-awareness, creativity, compassion, vulnerable, but sometimes you go to an 8 in times of health, but often you will default to an 8 in times of disintegration. I'm saying you as in 2, not Chelsea, she doesn't do these things often, ever. She's perfect. So in unhealth, an 8 could look like vengeance, anger, pride, judgment, and so that's just a 2 having access to not only both of their wings, but also where they disintegrate and integrate. And here's a key, it's bold on the screen and maybe like the theme for today's lesson that I would love for everyone to walk away with one thing, and this is it. No one is one pure personality type. Everyone is a unique mixture truly of his or her basic type, and usually at least 1 or 2 or 3 other adjacent to or across on the Enneagram circle numbers, which is so cool. Personality is fluid and ever developing, and another interesting fact, in my opinion, you'll see on the screen it says second wing. There's been recent research and study about showing that people not only have their dominant wing, but oftentimes may develop a second wing later in life. I put Kyle, for example, I knew you were a 7. So Kyle's a 7, do you know your wing by chance?
I feel like I would wing 6 more than 8.
You would, okay. So, from what I know, I would probably agree with that. A 7 wing 6. But later in your life, you would probably still say a 7. That usually doesn't change, at least that's what theories say. But you may develop more of a 4 wing or more of a 9 wing, which is so cool because even though, according to the instrument, you don't access both of those readily, people change as time goes on. We know this, people become more extroverted or introverted as time progresses. You have a natural inkling, but your personality does develop. And so I think my point is basically that there are various points on the Enneagram with differing numbers and personality types and how they interact. And we'll learn more about ourselves and others the more we don't just know about our number, but about the wings and the complete tool. So, as we can see from this next slide, wings are crucial for development and growth. You don't see this on the slide, but I'll explain what I mean. We all have the potential to access both wings and potentially a future wing, like we just discussed. If we are not accessing the positive style of the others, we may be missing out on some possibilities of our own growth. I feel like I'm talking in circles, so let me give an example. I am a 3, that's why I put 3 wing 2, and so 3s, we have a couple, we like to perform, we like to look good, we like to achieve, we're image conscious, we care what other people think, all that fun stuff. And I'm a wing 2, which I found very surprising. And 2s are often altruistic, compassionate, empathetic, warm-hearted. Those words come to mind when thinking about a classic 2. So there's a lot of focus on the other person. And I thought I'd be more of a wing 4, and when I think about wing 4, you can see it on your sheet, or on the larger handout. They're more creative and unique and individualized, and they care more about themselves. I'm like, oh, that sounds me. I'm more of an internal thinker than caring about others, just being honest. And I also was confused because 3s and 2s, and even 4s, going back to the triad of the Y in that first handout, dividing up into chunks of 3s, those are all emotionally in tune on the heart side of the triad. This is shocking, and so I'm not like immune to crying or emotions. Chelsea knows this, but it's not my default. I often don't find myself in those experiences. Example, losing loved ones. So when my grandparents died, for example, I never got overly emotional personally or found myself deep in those feelings. I kind of withdrew and avoided those. And I didn't think about it because the thought was overwhelming. But learning about my wings, it all kind of made sense because I chose to disengage, whether I wanted to admit it or not, intentionally. I mentioned those triads. Can I see? Yeah, just for 1 second, thank you. And I'm sorry it's not labeled, I tried to find one, but you can see the 2, the 3, and the 4 are together, and the 3 is right in the middle of the triad. The 3, the 6, and the 9 are all what's called anchors. And so the 3, 6, and 9 are all in the middle of either the heart triad, the 3, the head triad, the 6, or the gut triad, the 9. So I learned that 3s can often see from a 4 point of view. On your sheet, the bigger sheet, you can kind of infer when you were brainstorming, it's there that 4s are often usually in tune with their own emotions, and I can see from a 2 point of view who are often in tune with the emotions of others, are often very selfless, and so therefore, instead of a healthy way of accessing the 4 and the 2, which is engaging with others, and engaging with myself, I withdrew. But in my healthiest state, 3s can be some of the most emotionally in tune when they access both of their wings because they understand not only others, but they understand themselves as well. So this is a key point for this part. Learning not only part of who you are, but truly the depth of all that you are, I think is what the Enneagram is trying to show us. So this next section is the climax truly of our time together, and I have the instructions on the screen. It looks overwhelming, but we'll walk through it. And the learning task is straight from our girl, you know her, you love her, Jane Bella, JV, as she's known. And it's these ideas of inductive input, implementation, and integration. So here's basically what we're looking at. The first step will be writing out on sticky notes, we'll do this in a moment, as many words as you can about yourself. Anything, positive, negative, neutral, I'm an achiever, I'm just talking about things about myself, I'm image, whatever it is. So write things about yourself, we'll give you some time to do that. Based on your knowledge of the Enneagram and wings, this is like the crux of what we're learning together. As best as you can on the sheet that Julia so graciously lent to me, try, I know it's not big, but try putting on the circle where you think those personality types fit. Ideally try to focus on your number and your wings. So you might say, oh, I'm a control freak, and that leans into an 8, but try, if you are a 2, for example, try categorizing it in the 3 or the 1, if that makes sense. So try to stick with your number and your wings. And then we're gonna split into 5 groups, well, there's supposed to be 5 groups of 2, and then share what you found. We'll do groups of 2 and 1 group of 3. Share what surprised you about the writing and the sorting process, specifically share examples of how you see these words incorporated at work, home, and elsewhere. And then we'll come back, do the same thing, share in a big group our results, what resonated, do you have any common themes? And a side note, actually, I don't know why I didn't include this, this feels very important, is that the best way not only to know your Enneagram type, but also your wing is to self-identify. So the first part of writing the sticky notes is to write a bunch of words that come to mind. This is where like the honesty and the safety and the trust comes in, because it's honestly only going to be as good as we all make it, and we're only going to get out of it what we put into it. So take some time, write some words, and then start self-identifying where you find yourself, because I can't tell you what to do. They even say this is more effective than the test, so do some soul searching if that sounds good.
You're supposed to write on sticky notes and put it next to a number.
Yeah, that'd be great. And I know the sheet's kind of small, so you can even, write on the back, like if you're a 2, put 1, 2, 3, like these are the 1s, these are the 2s, these are the 3s.
Okay.
Use both of your sheets to infer.
Okay.
Yes, and I think other pens are on the table.
I think they're behind you.
Oh, thank you.
So we're writing down words.
So the first step is just writing down
and
words
then we
about
categorize
yourself.
it later.
Yes, so good question. We'll break it up into sections. You are literally just writing as many. We're gonna kind of go fast, so the first things that come to mind, this isn't the part to do so much soul searching, so just write things about yourself that you know are
I
true.
don't want this hard.
That feels really hard.
Yeah.
A lot of words.
As a 9, it's very hard.
Yeah, because you're everything to all people, aren't you?
All this.
I think he wants us to use all the sticky notes, but sometimes.
As many as you can, yeah,
All
so,
this, okay.
yeah.
Oh,
So just,
individual words on individual.
yeah. So the first sticky note would
Okay.
say joyful. The next sticky
Yes.
note would say subconscious. The next sticky note would say caring.
Oh.
And be honest, I mean, you can say good things and hard things about yourself.
I don't like that one.
Hold on, let's take another minute-ish, maybe a little over. Just a bunch of words, as many as you can about yourself. More sticky notes, the better. Another few seconds. Great. And you can keep writing, you can kind of multitask for this next part. But based on your knowledge, keep writing. This isn't like time, put your pens down, keep thinking, brainstorming. It's all about self-reflection. Based on your knowledge of the Enneagram and wings, as much as you can, try to now categorize that based on your number, which everyone identified as. Try to either do it as one of your wings.
So not as our actual number.
Oh, your
So
actual
like if
number
I'm
or
2,
your wings.
Should I put something under 2 or only 1 and 3? Either or any.
Either, any of those. But make sure some go to the wings so that you can, the idea here is to start self-identifying your wing. Or try it. You can keep going, you don't need to stop, but as you're doing that, you can also, if something else comes to mind based on the 3-page packet that's like a trigger word of, oh my gosh, of course I am, creative, I can't believe I didn't put creative, you can still write sticky notes if that's helpful. This is your time.
That's when the word you write is on the strengths for problems.
I like it.
Must be nice to be a doctor.
You have a lot of words.
I have nothing on my wing 4. Guess it's not my wing.
Look at
But I just added one.
You are, I don't think you're
Oh,
wing 4.
nice.
I'm Michelle.
Or no,
Yeah, you're not a wing 4, oh my gosh.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm
Well, you're just such a wing too. It's not like you don't have any of that. It just is.
Such a
but
wing
I'm
too.
a little creative.
You?
You're so artistic. You're cool creative, is that what you said?
A little creative.
I'm
Grade 4.
kidding.
Grade 4.
All right, let's give another 60 seconds or so.
I like only have one on each wing. I don't.
That's okay.
On each of your wings.
That's it.
There's
I
no.
know.
Great.
No.
That's okay.
I don't, yeah, maybe so.
That's okay. Give another minute or so.
I like your wing.
No, but then like I used to have a perfect. Maybe I used to be a perfect.
Oh wait, yeah, you are also.
Right. I think I.
You're a
really
true
was
airplane.
like-
Meeting two.
I agree.
Really
I
healthy.
think I have both ways. I think I for sure have both
I think
ways.
she's cool.
You're so well rounded.
Thanks.
Which is the thing. Yeah, you. Yeah, we'll talk.
She's really flex.
Kind of eagle.
Yeah.
See it right there.
This is really fun.
Yeah,
Oh, fun.
this is fun.
Thank you.
I think the longest
I understand
one
we have a
we got-
casual relationship, so you may call me Nicky.
Oh, sorry.
I'm literally completely kidding. There's gonna be 6 people who watch this.
This is Slavich.
But I respect all of you fellow learners, and I enjoy our online forums.
And these other students in this?
The wellness one was better.
Is this live? Is this live? Instagram live. Okay, as we're finishing up for the sake of time, I think that we are going to combine the implementation and the integration. So this is awesome. This is actually even better than I thought because I was worried that I didn't make enough time for the group part, and I don't think I made. I think it's going over the time I had allotted, which is a beautiful problem. So we're going to call an audible and share together. Honestly, I mean, here are the prompts, but really it's just what you learned, what stood out, how are we feeling about this, what makes you upset, what do you feel like resonates, and going back to safety and trust that there's no right or wrong. Emily, you could say literally every single thing I put was a 9. Someone could say, how come all of them were my wing? Do I not know what my true type is? We are debriefing and processing this together through verbal sifting. So, anyone at all, and maybe not, we may not get time to everyone, but if someone feels like they want to, at least a couple would be so helpful.
I'll start.
Cool.
I'm just debriefing the exercise.
Yeah. And keeping in mind, sorry to cut you off, we're doing,
What are we
I know this is really interpersonal, but tweets, not vlogs for the sake of time.
Okay, most of mine went under number 2 because that is what I most closely identify with. But a lot of things went under number 3, being more like image conscious and like liking to be liked. Those are also 3 qualities of a 3, and I feel that I resonate with. And like being hardworking, I think. So I didn't get anything in number 1 because I don't really identify with being any sort of like perfectionist.
Sure.
So I think this exercise made me realize I'm a 2 wing 3.
Awesome, so helpful, thanks, Chelsea. Other thoughts? Thoughts that resonate, it was very clear to you, thoughts that were frustrating, thoughts that were confusing?
I think I was frustrated that I couldn't find like one wing. I think I want to be able to like lean towards one, and maybe as an 8, as a 9, I want to be an 8 because it's almost this like weird. It's a paradox because most of like you hear 8 is the challenger and 9 is the mediator, and you think like can those even come together? And so I think that so much of my tendency of a 9 has to do with more of my shadow side, and I like that it's like so I'm vlogging. I like that I have this idea of like I'm accepting of others, I'm harmonious, but I also want to fight for others. So I see that in the 8 and like the advocacy piece, me wanting to just like going to social work, doing my master's in that.
Right.
But I see the 1 as like the hardworking, achieving, like to get things done, like the right way, perfect way. So I think it's fun to feel balanced, but I also wish I just had one to claim and like feel more strong in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of ambivalent, I'm sitting in ambivalence, but I want to choose one.
Yeah.
I feel like that is like the most perfect example of like the purpose of the wings, or that feels great. I can understand that like, oh, you just want one exact, but I truly feel like you have it great. You articulated that so well, like how both of those challenge and help you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's well put, and I'll try to keep my talking minimal. I know people who are, as far as knowledge on the Enneagram, like a 9 or a 10 on the Enneagram, and they go back and forth between what true number they are, not even wings. And so, for example, someone I work with says, I go back and forth between being a true 2 and a true 7, and they know all that there is to know about being a 2 and a 7. So that being even broken down further to your wings, that's very normal, that's common, and yeah, no, truly I know it sounds like a catch-all, but there's no right or wrong answer. It truly is understanding yourself better, and hopefully that happened a little more. But
Yeah, that's
good thoughts. Anyone else? Maybe one more?
I'll share.
Cool.
I wasn't sure whether I was even a 1 in general, and then this exercise I think made me realize that I probably am a 1 because I wanted to get this exercise right. I don't know if you felt this way, but I was like, what are the right words? Like, did I get a right balance of words? Like, am I putting them in the right category? Like, let me reference this thing and make sure that I got the right number. And then it's like, wow, I think I'm a 1. So I don't know if I confirmed my wings at all. I just confirmed maybe I'm a little bit more of a type 1.
Love it. Wonderful. And we will thank you all so much for 1, participating, and 2, being a part of that. I think for the sake of this video, we maybe are going to end this session, and then we will continue with part 3 of 3, Sean, if that feels good. And then we will be close to ending our time together. This is Sean Sitters, everyone. Let's give it up for Sean. All right. Back on?
Yeah.
3 of 3. We are coming in the home stretch, fellow learners. Thank you all so much for your feedback there. Moving forward together on this next slide, hopefully you're developing a more in-depth understanding of your number and how that interacts with other numbers, specifically your wing or wings, if you feel like they are both. One thing I think is helpful to be mindful of is that what we've talked about, everyone has access to each Enneagram type. So for me and others that I have studied, people often get stuck on autopilot just saying their type. For example, I'm just an 8 and I act that way because that's how I've always acted, or I'm a 2 and boundaries and saying no is hard, or I'm a 4 and it's hard for me to think about others because I'm just overwhelmed with my own emotions. And I'm guilty of this, right? I'm a 3 and I talk about my 3-ness very often, and that's a downfall of the 3s, they can be very conceited sometimes, but I fail to see and continue thinking where else I can grow and understand myself and others better. So as we all grow and become healthier, we give ourselves permission, or in the words of the Enneagram, we give access to the neglected, overlooked, and abandoned parts of ourselves and manifesting themselves in other types. And there are numerous beneficial outcomes to having this happen. I would say that a personal highlight for me is the ability to see how different numbers interact, because when you are in tune with the other numbers, including your wings, your health and your stress, and then of course your own personal Enneagram, it not only makes you a better person, but I would argue, and I would say it definitely makes you a better significant other, friend, roommate, worker, employee, anything and everything above, because you're not only understanding yourself, you're also understanding others on the spectrum as well. Another personal and hopefully helpful example is, I'm just going to talk about Chelsea and I because I knew what she was. Of course I know what I am is about her being a 2-wing 3 and me being a 3-wing 2. So the obvious overlap here is that we're the exact inverse of each other, right? But the more we found out about each other's wings, or the more we continue to find out, the more we can understand each other. So taking it a step further, I find that for me, I don't often go to my wing 4, but I have access to my wing 4, and that's the same number that Chelsea goes to in times of health. So a 2, when they are fully integrated, they go into times of a 4, and when I dip into my wing 4, even though I heavily lean on my 2, I also go to a wing 4. So that's kind of a tangible example of saying it's beneficial to know not just your own wing, but others as well. And I think that's the beauty of the Enneagram, is that there's so many layers to each and every number. There's always something new to learn. So to kind of coming to an end, but I want to do one more group activity. I think we're going to call an audible here as well, and it will include identifying your specific number wing combination. And I will tell you that in just a moment, and then we'll debrief kind of in a large group instead of breaking off. I think that makes more sense to stay together. And there were 3 parts of the activity, but I'm going to call an audible right now. And as best as you can, maybe we can guess, well not guess, but educated guess what our wing is, even if you're not sure. I know some people feel caught in the middle, But I will give you, at least according to the Enneagram Institute, the defined word for that number wing combination. For example, no one's a 4, so this won't apply. Enneagram 4 with a wing 3 is the Aristocat. Rat. Not the Disney movie with the cats. It's so good. Maybe we should just talk about the Aristocats. 4 wing 3 is aristocrat. Enneagram 4 wing 5 is the Bohemian. That won't apply to anyone here, and a lot of us will probably be the same because there's many 2s, there's a couple 3s, but I think it'll be interesting. So, starting with Sean, and then we can do a big group feedback. You are a 1, we know this. Do you have an inkling to where your wing is leaning you?
Oh, I think that I'm probably leaning in the direction of a 2.
Awesome. If you are a 1 wing 2, your word would be the advocate. And if you can remember this word, we'll debrief in just a moment. Advocate. Sam?
2 wing 3.
2 wing 3, we may have a couple of those. You are the host. Or the hostess. Kyle?
7 wing 6.
Not surprising, the entertainer.
Angry.
Remember that? Jenny?
Well, okay, here's the thing. I am a 2, and I think I'd be a wing 1 for sure.
Mhm.
But now I'm wondering if I'm more of a 1.
Got it. So here are a couple words for you.
Maybe.
You want to remember these? That's really interesting. 1 wing 2 would be the advocate, or you said you might be a 2 wing 1 if not.
Yeah.
Then that one is the servant. So the advocate 1 wing 2, the servant 2 wing 1. So no right or wrong, just helpful.
Thank you.
Kim,
I think I'm a 3 wing 2.
the charmer.
Sure.
Yeah. Chelsea,
2 wing 3.
2 wing 3 is the hostess, which resonates. Emily,
May I have both, please?
the 9 wing 8 is the referee, which we can all see.
That's Emily?
Yeah. but the 9 wing 1 is the dreamer, which is there too.
Oh.
I want to see it.
Yeah. Cal,
3 wing 2.
yes, you are also the charmer. Makes sense. Julia,
I don't know, 1 wing 2?
1 wing 2 would be the advocate. Did at any point you think you were a 6? Or no?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I'm open.
Okay. One that I,
What is the
What's
one?
a 6?
the 1 wing 9 is the idealist, which I think could fit as well. One for you, I'm not speaking your truth,
No,
you
please
identified. I had thought when I was thinking of the people that were going to be in here, and I was like, I wonder if anyone else could be a 6, which I see for you. The 6 wing 7 is the buddy, which I think makes sense for someone like Julia because she has so many friends and she's so loyal. That's a core competency of the 6. And then the 7 is the enthusiast, which you'd definitely like to have a good time. So just a thought for you. And I have a 3 wing 2 also, charmer. So maybe if we yeah, which is fun. So if we want to share a few moments together, I know our time is coming to a close, so maybe a couple people based on your word, you can share, I don't know what this word means, can you help me help us understand? Maybe you want to share, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I have a word set for that, that's really helpful, here's how I've seen that. Basically reacting to your word, the open-ended question is, how do you feel about your word?
I can start. I have never heard, this is new, I appreciated this work, but I feel like host is very much so how I think. I feel like my solution to everything is let's just have them over. And so, yeah, I think that's like how I feel like I'm motivated, and I feel like maybe a solution for me is to host people. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel similarly how you feel. Like mine was the entertainer, and I always think like when I'm around people, or just my goal is like to keep people smiling. It's like get the mood like high in energy and happiness, and then like keep it up there as much as you can, and do whatever you can to do to keep it up there. So makes sense.
I'm still thinking about my word. The advocate. I don't know about it because I think that sounds like, well, this is gonna sound really bad, but it sounds like almost like too thoughtful about others, because I just feel like I just talk a lot, and I just feel like maybe I am more like searching for solutions to everything. So like trying to find like answers. So Then maybe advocate could play into that, but maybe
Right.
like solution seeker or something might be.
That's good.
1-9 was a dreamer, right?
1-9 is the idealist.
Idealist.
Yeah.
Do you think that could?
I don't think so.
No.
One thing potentially, Sean, I'm not speaking this over you, but for the advocate, one thing I feel like being your friend and roommate, I have seen is like advocating for your ideas, and not in a selfish way, but even like being a Christian in the workplace and not being afraid to say like, oh, I'm advocating for what I believe in. And I think belief is one of your top strengths, maybe. So I think for you, it's like, oh, I advocate for who I am, and that can translate to others like for who they are. I'm not saying that's entirely true, but I can maybe see that in being your friend. So, anyone else? Other final thoughts?
I'm just confused, but it also makes sense.
Yeah.
Because for 1 and 2, I'm an advocate, and I think in the past few years of like being a nurse, I feel like I've lost a lot of my compassion. Not in a bad way per se, but like I don't go to work and I don't cry or anything. But so now I go to work and I am super organized. I have a really annoying student following me for 15 shifts, and she is not organized, and I'm just like, oh, you need this and this. So I think my way is now like I am the perfectionist in order to maybe like to serve my patient who is critically ill. So I think that's kind of how I'm changing. Because I used to be so like emotional and just journal and cry, but I don't do it. I'm changing.
I see it every day. Yeah, I think that speaks perfectly to like kind of one of the key takeaways is like it's fluid. You know, it's not you're not just going to be a 2 wing 3 for your whole. I mean, you're probably going to be a 2, but you're gonna dip into other areas. So yeah, great thoughts. We can definitely share more after the recording because these students are eager for more. But let's close our time together. And in closing, I want to share a few final thoughts. First, maybe we can summarize our helpful learnings, and these are what Jane Bella would call the what for. So in her 7 steps for design and creating a course, it's really helpful. She has 7 steps. I think the 5th is the what. So the what is the Enneagram, specifically wings, and the what for incorporates fancy term achievement-based outcomes, which is basically a way of saying what did you take away. So on the next slide, I should say on this slide, here's what I hope you take away, is a true definition of Enneagram wings. So hopefully this was found through the lecture, through the group activities, through the discussion. You're not only walking away with knowing more about the Enneagram, but I think you're knowing more about the surrounding wings and having that be indicative of the complexity of human behavior and human emotions. There's a lot there. It's not easy. I know this was hard for a lot of us, but hopefully you can see now and at least are more knowledgeable by having a better understanding of the Enneagram wings. But not only do you know about the wings, but you know specifically more about your wing or more than you did. I know you may not know what your wing is, but it's important because I believe arguably one of the most important things for a leader or just for a learner is the idea of self-awareness. Many theories, texts, and professors I've had would say that is the #1 trait for a good leader is to be self-aware. You think of kindness and wisdom and strategy and courage. That's what I did like my thesis on is courageous leadership. But all those things stem from knowing who you are and then better knowing who other people are. So hopefully you identified your specific wings at least a little bit better. And then really the rich time together was a discussion of Enneagram wings for relational, occupational, and personal growth. I think this was profound for all of our self-realization and the discussion and the sharing and the mutual learning for all of us all provided, myself included, healthy growth. So I want to say thank you all so much for being here. A couple closing thoughts on resources. You all know this because you know the Enneagram better than I do, but the Enneagram Institute is a really helpful tool. That's where I got a lot of this material. You could spend days on this website, and one thing I really love is that you can actually see how the numbers are compatible with each other. It's one of the coolest features. So right away when Chelsea's tested as a 2 and I tested as a 3, for every number it has the other numbers you can be compatible with. So I went 2 wing 3, and one of the things, this isn't in my notes, but it's fun, is being the host, hostess, and the charmer. One thing is that commonly the 2 wing 3 will like to host parties, but then the 3 wing 2 won't want to plan it, but then will want to just like be the party. And so looking at that for ourselves, I think has really been indicative and helpful for our marriage. There's books, The Road Back to You, The Sacred Enneagram, profound authors. I know many of you have looked at those books. You have those books. I'm looking into them as well. If you don't know about Sleeping at Last, phenomenal Ryan O'Neill, who is the artist. He is writing songs for every single type, but the really cool part is that he's coming out with an hour-long podcast on every single, an explanation for every type. He's doing 4 Enneagram Type 4 this month, which is really exciting. And then honestly, this is not cheesy, this is not a cop-out. The people in this room, we are all resources to each other. 1, because we're very good friends. 2, because we're not more knowledgeable about the Enneagram. Yeah, and I just think there's a lot of mutual respect and adoration and love in that. So thank you truly for being a part of this. I appreciate all of you. And this concludes our lesson on Enneagram Wings. Come on, come on. Yeah, yeah.
Encore!
Oh, I'm sorry. I kind of was sulking.
So good.
That was so good.
I love that.
That was awesome.
Just